When you retire, your paycheck stops, but your need for income doesn't. So how do you turn your nest egg into a steady retirement paycheck that lasts? That's what we're unpacking in today's video, the complete retirement income playbook. How to go from assets to income and do it in a way that's tax smart, sustainable, and designed to last as long as you do. I'm Cary Green, financial advisor and co-founder of Green Era Financial, and I help people close to or in retirement to get the most out of life with their money. And today I'm walking you through the strategy that makes it all work, how to turn what you've saved into income you can rely on. Whether you're 2 years out or 10 years into retirement, understanding this framework can help you make smarter decisions with your money. First, you've got to know your expenses. Retirement isn't about some random numbers like $1 million or 12 times your salary. It's about how much you need to live the life you want in retirement. So, what does your dream retirement look like? Are you traveling? Are you spending time with family? Joining the country club? Whatever it is, that's where you start, because once you know what you want, then the next thing to do is to figure out how much it's going to cost. Now, there are two ways to calculate your expenses. The first is what we call the bottom-up approach, and this is where you grab a notepad or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and you go through each of your expenses and you list them out line by line and how much they're going to cost you. So this would be things like your mortgage, your groceries, your phone bill, Netflix, or whatever your expenses may be. Now, this method is extremely accurate, but it also takes quite a bit of time, and sometimes it's difficult for people to confront sitting down and tackling this. So if you're looking for something quicker, the top-down approach works too. The way that the top-down approach works is we take a look at what your take-home pay is right now. So, for example, maybe you get paid every month and taxes get taken out and 401k contributions get taken out and your healthcare comes out, etc. But what's the amount that actually hits your bank account each month? Now, that's the starting point. From there, what you do is you adjust for things that you may not have as expenses when it comes to retirement. So, for example, maybe your mortgage payment won't be there anymore by the time you retire because your house will be fully paid off. Or maybe right now you're saving $500 a month into an IRA and you're not going to be doing that in retirement. So you would adjust your expenses to remove that amount from your take-home pay. Both of these approaches work really well for getting a realistic idea of what your expenses will be in retirement. Now, once you have a good grasp on your likely retirement expenses, the next thing to work out is your income sources. Now, most retirees draw from a combination of Social Security or pensions, retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks, taxable brokerage accounts, savings accounts, annuities, and even part-time work or rental income. And you can think of all of these sources as your retirement income engine. Some of these are guaranteed, others fluctuate. Your goal is to line up stable income with essential expenses and then use flexible assets to support your lifestyle. So let's look at 3 strategies for withdrawing funds from your investment assets in retirement. The 4% rule is the most commonly used method. The way it works in simple terms is you withdraw 4% of your portfolio in the first year of retirement and then adjust your withdrawals for inflation each year starting in year 2 and every year after that. So, for example, maybe 4% of your portfolio in year 1 is $80,000. Then beginning of year 2, you check inflation and this came out at 3% for the year. Now you take your $80K and adjust it up by 3%, equaling $82,400 in year 2, and so on. This strategy supposes that you should have a high probability of not running out of money over 30 years. So let's talk about the pros and cons. The pros for the 4% rule are that it's extremely simple, and it's based on historical research from the Trinity study, for example, and it's reasonably conservative for most retirees. But there's also some cons. This strategy doesn't adapt to market conditions. It can be too conservative for flexible retirees or too aggressive if you need to retire early. And it assumes a 50-50 stock-bond mix, which isn't what most retirees have. It doesn't consider things like taxes or what allocation of funds you have in various types of accounts. And it also doesn't account for the fact that your expenses may be higher in the first 10 years of retirement than your later years if you plan on traveling a lot or having expensive hobbies like the country club, etc. Now, this is a pretty simple to implement strategy, but it may not be the best fit. So let's look at the next option. Here's where we introduce the concept of income buckets. This can be a great strategy to apply to your income and investments in retirement because it helps provide peace of mind during market downturns and helps match assets to your spending timelines. So here's how it works. Bucket 1 is generally for the next 2 years and usually contains things like cash or cash-like alternatives. Bucket 2 is for years 3 through 10 and usually utilizes things like bonds or income-generating investments. And bucket 3 is for longer than 10 years, and this is where you use things like stocks and growth assets. The way this works is you withdraw from bucket 1 and then periodically refill it from the other 2 buckets. So let's talk about the pros and cons of this strategy. So the pros: it helps provide peace of mind during market downturns, and it matches assets to spending timelines. Here are the cons. It requires maintenance and discipline, and it may be inefficient if buckets aren't periodically rebalanced and filled up. So to implement it, you determine how much you need in each bucket based on expected spending, and then invest accordingly. Now again, this is a solid option, but it still might not be the best fit for everyone. So let's also look at the third option. The Guardrails Approach. This method sets a target withdrawal rate with guardrails. If your portfolio grows, you give yourself a raise. If it shrinks, you cut back slightly. So here's a hypothetical example of how this works. If your initial withdrawal is 4.5% of your portfolio, you don't increase spending unless the portfolio grows by 20%. And you reduce spending if it drops by 20%. It's a very interesting strategy. So let's talk about the pros. This is probably the most adaptive strategy, and it optimizes spending while protecting portfolio longevity. But there's some cons to this. It's more complex to track and apply and requires discipline to stick to it. This strategy is good for retirees who want a balance between stability and flexibility. Now, how you withdraw matters just as much as where from. Each account type has different tax treatment. Traditional IRAs and 401k withdrawals are fully taxable. Roth IRAs have tax-free withdrawals if qualified, and brokerage accounts, the capital gains and dividends are taxed. So the order in which you withdraw funds in retirement matters. So here's a common sequence, which may not be right for everyone. First is you withdraw from taxable brokerage accounts. Then you withdraw from your traditional IRAs or your traditional 401ks. And third, you let your Roth grow for as long as you can. Or you can blend them strategically to stay in your tax bracket. Now, this sequence may not be right for you, but it's generally the most common approach for tax reasons. Now, here's an important factor to consider. Static plans don't usually work in real life. The key is building in flexibility. So this includes a flexible spending plan that allows you to raise or lower spending as needed, utilizing the 4% rule, the income bucket strategy, or the guardrails approach, and adjusting based on market performance and longevity. Having a process gives you freedom because you know when and how to pivot. So, what are the potential pitfalls to this? There are 3 big enemies of a retirement plan. Inflation. It erodes purchasing power, and that's why you need growth. Volatility. Sequence of returns risk. A bad market early can derail a plan. And longevity. Outliving your money. It's the biggest fear retirees have. So how you invest and withdraw needs to account for all 3 of these. So let's look at a real example here. Let's say you're 65, married, with $1.5 million saved and $60,000 a year from Social Security between both of you. Your expenses are $100,000 a year, and you set aside $100,000 in cash, bucket number 1, $400,000 in stable income, bucket number 2, and the rest in growth, bucket number 3. You draw $40,000 a year from bucket number 1. Each year, you refill it with income from bucket number 2 or strategic withdrawals from bucket number 3 based on market conditions. And then maybe you do Roth conversions in early retirement before RMDs kick in at age 73 and blend withdrawals to stay in the 12% tax bracket. This is just one scenario, but it shows how all the pieces can fit together. So, with a proper plan, retirement can be incredibly smooth and stress-free. After all, retirement isn't just about having enough saved. It's about creating a reliable, flexible income plan that supports your life. And when you have that plan, you don't have to worry about the markets or taxes or inflation because you've already built it all in. So if you want help building your own retirement income strategy, you feel free to visit us at greenarrowfinancial.com or reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to help you if I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.